Here with us now is Caitlin Conant, political director for CBS News. Caitlin, good to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, President Trump has said he's not watching, but he clearly is watching at least some. What is the White House strategy here?
So the White House is trying to first question the motivations of these witnesses and say that they are unelected government bureaucrats and try and muddy the waters there on what exactly their intentions are here. And they're also talking about process a lot. And I think David said this earlier, too, and I agree. This is ultimately going to come down to voters and whether they think this was just inappropriate behavior or illegal and impeachable behavior. And that remains to be seen.
To 2020, the next big Democratic debate is tomorrow night. How will impeachment factor into what's happening on the stage in Atlanta?
Well, the candidates on the Democratic side have tried to avoid talking about this on the campaign trail because they're focused on their policies. They're pretty much in universal agreement that they think the president should be impeached. But one of our New Hampshire reporters today was telling me that even though they're hearing a lot about health care on the trail, in New Hampshire, there's actually a bit of health care fatigue. And one voter even told her, you know, if they start talking about this right out of the bat tomorrow, I'm going to turn off the TV. And given the backdrop of impeachment, some of these Democratic voters in New Hampshire have told her they'd rather hear about the Democrat candidates' plans on anti-corruption efforts and what they're going to do to fight corruption. So given that health care is the #1 issue still in most of the polls, I found that very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, the CBS Battleground Tracker factors everything from races for delegates to voter confidence. Caitlin, what do you see as the biggest takeaway?
Well, I thought the biggest takeaway was actually about Mayor Pete Buttigieg, and he has entered the top tier in Iowa, according to our poll out this weekend, and has also had a big rise in New Hampshire. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has come down a bit in Iowa, so we'll see what the future holds, but for now it looks like a bit of a shakeup in that top tier. And a lot of Mayor Pete's support, too, is coming from Elizabeth Warren supporters and people who originally had her as their first choice.
It's only about half a minute left, but how are we supposed to read that? You have Joe Biden with a huge lead in South Carolina. Pete Buttigieg barely even registers in the state, but he's leading. He's the front runner in Iowa. What are we to make of all this?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway out of that Q poll in South Carolina is that Mayor Pete registers at 0% with black voters. And it's going to be really tough for a Democrat to win the nomination with no support from the black community.
Right.
All right, Caitlin Conant with CBS News. Thank you so much.
Thank you.